So I had some questions regarding how I'd added the armature wire into Baby Yoda and how I got his head off. Everybody's so freaked out about taking his little head off. He's so cute. He's gonna do what I have with that head. Anyways, so the issue is getting into be able to cut the zip tie that holds his head on. And part of that's difficult because there's a little tab here. I didn't reinsert it, but this tab normally is connected to the zip tie and holds his clothes on his body. So if you try to take off his clothes, you either have to remove that zip tie, which then removes his head, or you have to cut this little loop. I didn't want to cut it, so I also wanted to take his head off. So I went straight for the zip tie. So if you happen to have some snips or some sharp, pointy scissors, something along those lines, you need to get in right in the back of his neck and jam that guy. It's harder to do, mind you, with his clothes still attached. You have less leeway here. So what I'm doing here is going to be a little bit easier, even though it doesn't seem to be very easy at the moment, than what you might encounter. But you got to get in and able to cut that zip tie. There you go, pop. So that would be normally attached there, and you'd be able to release that at this point, which then you could take off his clothes easily, but then you run the risk of his head falling off since the zip tie is now disconnected. So you'll see here that because of that, his head comes off very, very easily. And then you remove the zip tie. In my case, I doubled this thing up because I didn't have the right length when I put them back together. So it's going to be harder to get out. It should just slide right out normally. So I'm going to have to deal with this for a second. This clothes get in the way, so you got to deal with that. Make sure his stuffing stays inside. And so now I got to sort of, come on, baby. I got to pull this through. Can I super glue that in place? Because that'd be lame. So I'm going to take it the other way. No, it's already moved. How is that even possible? It's just jammed in there. I will cut all of this out of the video because it is nonsense. Come on. There we go. All right. So there you go. Slips right out. Back this guy up. So it slips right out, so you can see I added a second zip tie to allow it to fit because my originals were too short. But today I went to the 99-cent store, or you can go to a dollar store, or hardware store if you want to spend a little bit more money. But for $1, I got this 30 count, all multi-purpose zip ties, and they are a little bit wider than what came in it, but their length is definitely ideal. So I'll be getting to that in a moment. As it came to actually putting in the armature into his arms, the first thing I did was take his clothes off here. Get up here again. Get him naked. There we go. And his arms were floppy because that's how they are normally. And what I then did was remove some of the stuffing. So we'll remove some of the stuffing. I went a few inches down where I thought would be a good sort of medium chest area that would accommodate the wire well as hold a good place to hold the voice box that I pulled out of my 7-inch because he has an actual hole in his back that allows you to remove his voice box very, very easily. So you could probably get a voice box from the Build-A-Bear one, or just a baby sound of voice box, because these are all generic baby noises. A couple of them, like that one, sound closer to what he says or things he says in the show. So anyways, what I did then was I stuck I stuck the little voice box with the wire wrapped around it. First I stuck one arm, fished it down, and got it into the hand. The end of the wire finishes in the hand, so I made sure it was long enough when I had him out here, so I had the wires cut long enough. And then I bent it up and got it in there. Did the same with the other arm, got it into the hand so it ends in the hand, so it won't be poking out in the wrist anywhere. And then I just kind of nestled the voice box wrapped in armature wire down there, sort of mid-chest, and returned all of his lovely stuffing. Let's not do this in one clump. Let's do it. And actually added a little bit of stuffing into the arms when I did it, because they seemed a little scrawny at the time. So more stuffing, kind of even it out. Put some more in the arms, give him a little bit of more bicep. So that goes down. Smaller clumps, easier to get in. It stays together pretty well, even though it's sort of a loose fill. So after I put the armature wire in, the arms are now posable. You can get them into a lot of poses that you could never do prior, and like the action figures can't do, because their arms don't move in such a manner, and things that you can't do with the 7.5 inch, because he has plastic arms and they don't bend. They move at the shoulder, but that's about it. So anyways, I'm going to put this back. Oops. So once you get the stuffing back in, I grabbed some zip ties from the 99-cent store. Go to dollar store or whatever. This was $1, so you get 30. These ones are a little wider than what they use originally, but the length is really good. All right, so you got his body back and stuffed. Now you want to put his clothes back on. Even if you're not going to attach it, it's easier to put his clothes on with his head off. So let's put his clothes back on. It is possible to do it without the other way, trying to bring it up, but his body is fat and it's hard to get the neck hole through around his fat body. So this is the best option in terms of replacing or returning him back to normal. And his arms stay like up, which is really nice. I love it. All right, so now I have to sort of pull his clothes down around this neck area of the plush and get that fill back in there. Ooh, put this little piece that I lost before, go back in there. Grab a zip tie, feed it in, feeds right in, nice and easy. Coming right out, boom. All right, so I'm gonna put that in just to start it, make sure the fill's down. I'm gonna grab his head. All right, so if you see here, it's a notch on the side of his neck, and you can get the zip tie to sort of sit right up in there, and then pull on it, and that will cinch it in. And then if you line up that notch with this little end piece, that will make it easier to put on and also take off ultimately. So basically just making sure that's nice and tight, and then I'll snip it. Now if I wanted to reattach his clothes, I would have had to put this loop back through the zip tie before I cinched it down. But I don't think his clothes need to be attached to his neck. I don't think like they're gonna fall off too easy. Anyways, so here I'm cutting against the grain, as it were, to give me a less of a point on the end of the zip tie here. You can also try to go back in and clean it up a little bit. See if you can make it, well, that actually made it sharper. That's why I did it this way. All right, anyways, if you have another knife, you can kind of shave off that bit of plastic, and that makes it a lot smoother, so you're not going to poke yourself when you pick them up. All right, so he's back to normal. Yay. Beepity bop. One more time. And there he goes. He can hold stuff. You can take it with him. He's very happy. He's got grabby hands. And there you go. So all you need is a zip tie. This was $1 for 30. I can do it over and over again if I want. But still better than buying a pack at most hardware stores. It'll cost you a few bucks for this guy. And very simple. If you have clothes you want to put on them, that would be a good time to swap them out. Makes it a lot easier. But there you go. That's mine. You can't play with that. All right. So there he goes. He's got his hands up. He's very happy. And he's going to go back where he was to chill. Hope that was helpful.